Doctors of Reddit, what is your most awkward experience when dealing with members of the opposite gender? Chaperoning nurse. Young doctor, first week in OB and was seeing an early pregnancy put in triage. Docs usually say, I'm going to put my hand on your vagina now, or you will feel the speculum on your lips or labia. He was rattled and so nervous he conflagrated them as I'm going to put my lips on your vagina now. The patient and I roared with laughter for a second before we controlled ourselves. He shakily kept his dignity and kept right on going like nothing happened. He never referred to it again for the 4 years he was there. When I was 16, I sometimes got dizzy if I stood up really fast. I'm pretty sure this is relatively normal, but my mom thought something was wrong with me. So, she took me to the doctor, and he wanted to check for testicular cancer. I had a worried look on my face because I didn't want an old Asian man feeling my nuts. The doctor saw my face and thought it might console me if he spoke teenager. He said in his Asian accent, I'm gonna feel up your balls. I felt pretty awkward after that. Somewhat related, but from a patient's perspective. When I was in nursing school, I went to my school's student health center for a gyno appointment. The doctor asked me if it was alright if a medical student was present. I said that was fine. She then specifies the student was male, and asks me if that was still okay. I wasn't totally comfortable with that, but as a nursing student I knew how much it sucks when a patient refuses you, so I said yes. Lo and behold, it was an incredibly attractive med student from my school who I bumped into all the time, and he saw the inside of my vagina. I never could look him in the eye after that. A lot of people are commenting that here I should have refused. I didn't actually know the guy, I just knew him as a hot stranger. And I think I became much more aware of his presence after this occurred. After receiving an internal exam from my gyn, he asked if he could bring a medical student in so they could get some practice. I agreed, thinking he meant a student. He took a good 10 minutes, but after that, in walked a group of about 5 people, male and female. They each took turns putting their fingers in my vagina, then talking about me like I wasn't there as they reported what they felt to my gyn's syphilitic chancre. Cystocele. With his back turned to me, my gyn corrected them and told them exactly what they had been feeling. It's her penis, attached to the interior wall below the cervix. Her urethra is inside her vagina. She was born with ambiguous genitalia, and had cosmetic feminization at 2 years of age. But the surgeon missed the internal structures, and that's how I discovered that I was born intersex and my parents opted for me to have labiaplasty as a toddler. Lots of people are asking, so here are some common answers. Identify as female, and in the end the surgery was the right choice. My father made the choice he felt was right for me at the time, and while I'm annoyed, I understand that as a single guy with his first child, he did what he thought was best. I had the penile tissue removed a few months afterwards, and had the urethra moved closer down, and had other bits and bobs adjusted. I'm not annoyed that the doctor spoke like I wasn't there. That's how it works, and I was fine with that. I was just shocked to find out about my condition in that way. For those asking what it's like or how I didn't know, the initial surgery was clearly well done. I had no idea that I was different, other than never being able to find my pee hole. I felt a lump inside and thought it was just my cervix, so it was never something that bothered me. My first boyfriend also noticed the lump, but we never thought it was anything other than a random lump. I am completely female in every way. I do not lack a single female organ or feature. This condition does not affect reproduction. I have a clitoris. In fact, the penis is likely just part of overdeveloped macroclitoris that extended into the vaginal canal and affected the placement of the urethra. My fucking doctor found a gallstone and never told me. Not until over a year after I had my ultrasound was my urologist like, you have a gallstone. Nope. It says here you do. What? The whole fucking time I'm like, God, this heartburn sucks. What an asshole. He still keeps sending me a bill for $25 some 5 years later. Fuck you. I'll pay up after you've spent $25 in postage. Prick.to clarify, my urologist was not the one that ordered the ultrasound. My PCP did, for then unrelated reasons. He's the one that keeps billing me for some bullshit. It wasn't until I saw a urologist that he was like, bro. Had surgery scheduled like the next week. Felt fantastic ever since. General Surgeon, 31F. For context, I work for a county hospital taking care of very salt-of-the-earth patients. These are my people, as I was also born with a plastic spork in my mouth. talking one morning to a young man who was about to get his inguinal hernia fixed, and his only question to me was, when can I have sex again? The only person with him was his girlfriend, who was smoking hot, so I broke him the bad news: you're going to wake up feeling like a horse kicked you right square in the junk. So, go ahead and do what you want when you feel like you want to, but it's not going to be today. We get him to the OR, put him under general anesthesia, and then a very new, very young, very pretty female nurse starts to prep him. To those unfamiliar, this involves vigorously scrubbing down the groin, including the penis and scrotum, with what amounts to a sponge on a hollow stick that dispenses a compound that decontaminates the skin somewhat. As soon as she starts scrubbing, the patient pops a raging boner. He's completely under and paralyzed, mind you, but the more she cleans, the bigger it gets, and yeah, this kid's a shower, I tell you what. Poor thing, her face just gets redder and redder, and it gets bigger and bigger, and everyone's giving her shit the whole time. I finally stop her because I'm afraid any second, he's going to break scrub and contaminate my field. Oh zero, we do our best to drape around old Ron Jeremy. It was hard. My poor, married with kids and straight as far as I know, male resident, had to keep batting the damn thing out of our field during the whole case afterwards. I made sure to reiterate to the hot girlfriend that he probably wouldn't feel like having sex in the near future. She asked me point blank if it was okay if she blew him, and I told her to go nuts. He asked me the same question when he woke up from anesthesia, and when I gave him the same answer, he gave me a knuckle bump in reply. God, I love county folk. D. I will preface by saying that the word opposite doesn't quite fit here. Last year I had a transgender patient, Ford, who had completed their transition, hormones and mastectomy only, for now, and had been living as a man for about a year or so. One day he called me and asked if he could have a blood test for HPV. I told him that the only test for HPV was a cervical swab. To be thorough, since he still had a uterus, we could do a pap smear with a swab to check for HPV. He agreed. It was a difficult and painful exam. He'd never borne children while a woman, and the testosterone he was taking made his vaginal canals smaller, drier. Even with the smallest sized speculum, it was very uncomfortable for him to complete the exam. It was awkward for me, not just because of his pain, but because he had been contenting with his transition and was living happily as a man, and then I had to give him an intrusive, painful reminder that he used to be a woman. It felt like a violation to me, much more so than the usual pap rectal exam, like I was somehow going against the transition he'd worked so hard for. Of course, to top it all off, the lab lost the HPV sample. We'll have to repeat it again sometime this year. Thankfully, at least he has an amazing attitude. Despite this, I still feel awful about the whole thing. Not me, but a fellow classmate in medical school. We have mock exams, and various people will sign up to be patients. They get paid a decent amount. So, he went in the mock exam room and started the basic history and physical on the fairly attractive female. Did this and that pretty standard stuff, grabbed and a tongue depressor and had her open her mouth. Then nothing, he did it again, and said with bewilderment, "That is weird, you do not have a gag reflex." She smiled and gave him a coy wink. He about lost it and couldn't finish. He walks out and finds the preceptor who monitors the exam about rolling on the floor laughing. As for me, I never really had an overly awkward experience other than maybe knowing someone, which can make certain exams a little awkward. Patient here. I was in a small town where my parents used to live, and I had to see a gynecologist. I was worried that I may have had a tampon stuck in my vagina, PSA. That's not physically possible, but I didn't know that at the time. Unfortunately, the only doctor I could see was a friend of my parents. After thoroughly probing and peeking, he informed me that there was nothing wrong. In fact, your vagina is, for lack of a better word, gorgeous. I've never been so embarrassed. I had to babysit his kids that weekend. In Brazil, 20-year-old woman receives a knife cut in the chest. Slides both of them across. Superficial injury, but it needed stitches. No plastic surgeon, susser in Brazil. Started the procedure. You like them, don't you? If you make them pretty again, you can play with them all you want. The nurse was mortified. This would go on for 45 minutes. As soon as the next doctor I on schedule arrived, I was ended the stitches and referred her to the other doctor, and noted out of there. English is not my primary language. Sorry for any mistake. Being a resident in Saudi Arabia, there are huge stigma attached to male attendings examining female patients, especially those with gynecological issues. Also, being a foreigner residing here, some customs and practices catch me completely off guard at times. That being said, I was once in charge of my consultant's OPD during an OPGYN rotation, said consultant having left early thinking all major cases and appointments had been dealt with, and left me to clean up any stragglers in the last hour. In walks a 40-ish-year-old mother with her 18-year-old daughter, both completely covered from head to toe in burqas, who then proceeds to throw a tantrum about how the consultant wasn't there for her appointment, and how she left a male resident in charge of the OPD. The cursory examination of the daughter's file didn't reveal any history which would have helped me decide if my superior should get involved. I then began to try to talk her down, asking her what her appointment was about, and how I was in charge of the department. I didn't dare reveal I was just a lowly resident, and I would do everything in my power to help her out with any issues her daughter had been having. After a lengthy conversation, I find out that the daughter was there for virginity verification, because she was to be engaged and subsequently married off that month, and appointments in my hospital's OPD are a bitch to get, and they needed to present that certificate along with some others, regarding finances, genealogy and a few others, to the prospective groom during the engagement ceremony. I went completely numb, detached, examined the poor girl silently. She was in the stirrups naked from the waist down, and burqa above that not even an eye slit, and discovered, for the first time, a stack of thick, extremely official-looking certificates in a desk drawer, to be given to women who passed the examination. I have since performed that examination close to 30 times, and have seen quite a few females who didn't have an intact hymen, and actually sobbed quietly in shame during the examination. I tried to explain to the family that hymen rupture is in no way a sign of promiscuity or even sexual penetration. To those people I know wouldn't understand, I just certified their daughters' virginities and tell the girl to come up with an excuse later on to their families. Damn, someone tells on me, and I'm going to be facing one hell of a malpractice suit. Third year of medical school on my family medicine rotation, which I'm doing on my med school's campus academic health center. Electronic medical record shows 24-year-old with chief complaint of cough, so I go in to interview her. Where it comes to light, she's really there for vaginal itching. Finish up the interview and tell her I'm going to grab my attending for the pelvic exam. My attending tells me she'll let me do the pelvic if the patient consents. I had already done OBGYN at this point and was quite comfortable with it, but we both agree I'd likely get asked to leave the room altogether. Lo and behold, patient consents. I do the pelvic, we write her a script for some antifungals, and she goes home. 2 days later, I'm teaching a small group of first-year students how to perform an abdominal physical exam. Teaching is a requirement of the family medicine rotation, when, during introductions, I come face to face with my patient, who never mentioned she was a first-year student. We both play it off really cool at first, but during the session, her partner asks me to show him how to do an inguinal femoral hernia examination on a female patient, aka his partner. While I'm doing my exam, she breaks out in hysterical laughter, which causes me to lose it, and start laughing at the absurdity of the situation as well. She played it off like she was ticklish, and I said something stupid like I thought of something funny, don't mind me. 2 weeks later, she returns to the clinic for a follow-up, and I go see her. We talk for a while about how she's feeling, how awkward our second meeting was, and then just shoot the shit for a bit when she goes, "So when are you going to take me out to dinner?" I politely declined and explained I had a girlfriend at the time and never saw her again. Tell her I did a pelvic exam on a girl who ended up being a fellow medical student, though 2 years behind me, and asked me on a date at her follow-up appointments. Patient side of the story. I got a positive on a STD test, so to take the secondary test to make sure, I went to public health center located near me. The blood drawer person was extremely cute. So, when she drew my blood, I was striking up a conversation, just to be friendly. She says, "You're awfully cheerful for a person that doesn't know if you have a STD or not." I tell her, "Well, you let me know if I do." She gave me a smile, and left. When someone came back, I shit you not, I was facing the other way, and said something charming flirty, only to turn around face to face with an old lady doctor. She even had a sense of humor, and said, "You can call me when you know you're clean." She was the kind of woman you can tell that used to be pretty about 20 to 30 years ago, but old age took its toll. I got embarrassed, asked for when to come back for results, and left. Week later I go back, see the same old lady doctor, and tells me I'm clean. I left before any awkwardness bubbled up.